and I'm driving slowly, you see all the cars, and right away you see a peace sign popping up. This is not going well. It's hesitating and stopping and backing. Hi there, and welcome to Techflower, and welcome to my Tesla Model 3. I've already made a video showing you how Autopark works in the Tesla Model 3. But at the point I recorded that video, I had an older version of Autopark. And in that video I promised if I got the improved Autopark, I would create another video. And this is that video, because now I've got the improved Autopark functionality in my Model 3. So what are the improvements to the Autopark? I will show you in a bit, but in short, it now shows you a 3D map of the parking lot you're in, and you can actually select which parking spot you want to park in, instead of the old one where the car simply chose the parking spot for you. So just so you know, I'm in the exact same parking lot as before, but of course I couldn't have the exact same cars parked in the same spots, but there are some cars parked here, so I can definitely try this out. Let's stop talking about it, and I'll show you how this works, and hopefully it works much better than the previous version of Autopark. So let's start by backing out of this parking spot and show you on the screen what happens. So right away, just while I'm putting my car in reverse, you see on the screen that you have these rectangles here. And for each rectangle, it's a parking spot that the car is identifying. And if you compare to the old version of Autopark, it took a while for the car to identify a parking spot at all. But let's back out and see what happens. So now I'm backing out, and you see that more and more rectangles are appearing. And I'm driving slowly, you see all the cars, and right away you see a peace sign popping up. I can just press it and let the car back in, but let's select this one instead, or this one. So I can actually select any of the rectangles shown on the screen, and the car will try to park in that spot. So let's first try this one. And it's the same here. I have to click start. It's in Icelandic in my screen, sorry about that. So let's see what happens if I click the start button. So if you compare to the earlier Autopark, I had to put my car in reverse myself. But now I simply have to press the start button and the car does the rest. And you can see the car drove a little bit forwards, and then it seems like it's doing it in one go, parking in the parking spot. And if you remember the previous version of Autopark, it always took 2 tries. Backing in, couldn't back in the correct way, had to adjust the car by going forward and backing in the second time. But now the car has parked and we can look at the cameras. And it seems like it's parking quite well. But of course this was an easy one. There are no cars around. I'm not even going to go out and see if it parked well. It seems like it parked quite well. So let's find a more difficult parking spot where we have some cars. And it's amazing to see how quickly the car identifies the parking spots. I'm driving slowly at the parking lot, and it's just showing up the peace sign and the rectangles for all the parking spots on the parking lot. And when I was driving at this area last time, it didn't show any parking spots. So let's go around here where we have some cars and let's see what happens. If we go over here, you see on the screen that we have some cars here, and if I drive past one parking spot, and it's identifying this parking spot, but I want to park in the parking spot beside the car. And in the previous Autopark, it always, as I said, took 2 tries. So let's see what happens now. I'll click the start button, And of course, as previously, I don't touch the steering wheel or the accelerator. The car does everything by itself. And it's backing in. Hopefully it doesn't crash into the next car. And it's not thinking a lot. Just goes in one try. This is such a huge difference. First of all, it shows you all the available parking spots that the car identifies, and you can actually select which parking spot you want to use. And when you have selected this parking spot and started the Autopark, the car just does it, and quite quickly as well. I'm not sure I would park much quicker myself. So let's go outside and see how it did. So here we have the parking job. I would say it's quite in the center. And as I said, I'm not sure if I would park better than this myself. And it's quite straight in the parking spot as well. You can see that. I'm quite happy with this one. So let's try to find a parking spot where we're in the middle of two cars. So we're back in the car. Let's try to find a more difficult parking spot. Let's see here. We have two parking spots between this car. We don't have at the moment a parking spot where we have only a single parking spot between. But let's pick this one. We're not there yet at the parking spot, but let's see what the car does now. Click start. It used the turn signal to indicate for the other drivers that we are going to back into a parking spot or go into a parking spot. And of course the car has to drive a little bit further or forward in order to be able to back into the parking spot. And it always backs into it. It doesn't drive into it. It's quite close to the car now on my left side. I don't think this parking job is as good as the previous one. Let's check it out. Nope, as I expected. It's a little bit too close to the white car here. And could be a little bit closer to this edge of the parking spot. But still quite straight in the parking spot. So as you saw there, it's not perfect, but it's parking quite straight, even though my car is a little bit too close to the white van on my left here. But still I was able to get out the car, and that's fine. So let's try to find a spot where there's a single parking spot between two cars. And as I'm driving faster, you see that the parking spots disappear, but when slowing down, right away the car identifies their parking spots. So let's see what the car does. I've identified a parking spot where there's only one spot in between, and you see it here on the screen, and it has identified it. So let's drive past it and then stop and pick it and click the start button and see what it does. Drives a little bit forward and then backing in, and this is quite a wide parking spot, but still between two cars. Let's see how straight it will park. Quite straight, but looking at the picture there, it's not totally straight. And in the camera, well, maybe it was quite straight in the parking spot. Let's see how it did. Okay, it is between the cars, but not straight in the parking spot. And not in the middle of the parking spot either. So even though the car is quicker at parking, it's not parking perfectly. I would have parked better than this. But it did the parking job, and I could get out of the car very easily. So you can see that the car can park between two cars, and of course it was able to do that in the older version, but in this new version the car was much quicker at it. So that is really good. So I will probably use this functionality more now, because the car doesn't take us a long time to do it. There was one thing I forgot to test in my previous Autopark video, and that is parallel parking. So let's try to find a parallel parking spot and see how the car handles that. It's a little bit more difficult to find parallel parking spots. But now I'm in a residential area and I found some spots I can try out. So let's see how it works. And as you can see on the screen, it's identifying some parking spots already. I'm gonna drive further up here so we see both the parking spots. And let's drive forward. And let's just pick this one and let the car park itself. So let's see what it does. It drives forward and wants to back into the parking spot. We have a car coming. And the car didn't want to wait, was very... So let's see what the car does now. The car's coming all over the place. Hopefully it doesn't go into the... I am not doing well. Come on. Not doing well here. Have to cancel that. So it couldn't go into that parking spot, and we have quite a lot of traffic here. So maybe we'll find a quieter street to try this out in, where we're not disturbed by all the oncoming traffic. We have a few parallel parking spots here. Let's see if it can identify those. There's no car coming. Okay. Let's just pick the one that it picked first and click start. There's no car coming in front of us or in the back, so we shouldn't be disturbed. It seems like it's taking a little bit more time parallel parking than backing up, but still doing quite some good job. Hopefully it doesn't go into the curb and scratch my rims. Yeah, it's definitely taking a longer time parking parallel than normal parking. And it says that it's done. According to the picture I got on the screen, it wasn't that good. It's maybe difficult to see. We're at least not in the next parking spot, and we didn't go into the curb. But let's take the phone out and see how the car did. So these parking spots are quite small. It's almost out on the street. And it's quite far away from the curb. I know the car doesn't want to scratch the rims, but I think the car needs to park a little bit closer to the curb in order to park properly, because it's not a very wide road here, and the cars need space to drive by. So in my personal opinion, I think the car should be a little bit further into the parking spot. But let's not judge the car for on one parking job. Let's try it some more times. So in this spot we're in a little bit of a hill, and the parking spot is really narrow. So let's see if we can find a parallel parking spot that is a little bit wider and not in such a hill. So let's try to find that. So let's try over here. We have some parallel parking spots here. They're a little bit wider than before, and the car is directly identifying those. So let's try this one. Oops, there's a car coming. So let's move up a little bit and try one of these, if it identifies those. So it identified 1 and 2. So let's park in this one that it found first, and let's see how it does. It probably will drive forward, yeah, as it usually does. There are more parallel parking spots here, but it only identified 2 at the moment. And there's actually one in front of this one. It hasn't identified that. Not yet. And here we don't have a curb that I'm worried about, so let's see how the car does. That was really strange. It's struggling a little bit. It seems like it's not knowing where the parking spot is exactly. This is not going well. It's hesitating and stopping and backing. And it just stopped. That's really bad. Let's try it again. See if we can do a better job. Okay, it's having difficulties identifying the parking spots. As you can see here, the parking spots are kind of, not very well identified. So let's find some other ones. Here I might have a parallel parking spot in between 2 cars, but will it identify the spot? That's the question. Let's see. Nope. It doesn't identify the parking spot here. This is obviously, it identifies the parking spot in front of the other car, but not the one in between the cars. Why not? Let's try to get it to identify this one, so we can park in between the cars. No, it doesn't want to identify it. Oh, here it did. Let's see how it does here. And hopefully it doesn't crash into the other 2 cars. We have a Tesla Model 3 in front of us here. Getting quite close to it, but that's fine. Not too close. Using its turn signal as always. Hopefully it's able to park in this parallel parking spot. Okay. Doing a good job so far. Going well into the parking spot, at least according to the camera feed. And it has to go a little bit further now. It's taking a few tries. And will it stop now or continue to adjust the car? Yeah, as you can see, it's not very sure about the parking spot. And stopping now, according to the camera feed, it wasn't very straight in the parking spot. But let's go outside and see. So definitely not straight in the parking spot. And as you can see on this side, it's not straight in the parking spot. Maybe it's due to these tiles that it's getting confused, but we have very clear lines for the parking spot, so it shouldn't be a problem. But the parallel parking doesn't seem to be as good as the normal parking. But let's try to find a parallel parking that doesn't have these tiles, just normal white lines, and see if it does better in that situation. Let's see what we can find here. Okay, here we have parallel parking. It's paved, but it's whole pavement, and it is identifying some spots. Let's see if it can identify the spot behind this car. Yes, it does. So let's try that one out. There's no traffic here, so that's good. Putting the turn signal on as usual. Going slowly towards this red car. Quite close to it. But let's see how it does this time around. Hopefully it can do a better job than the last tries. Okay, coming up. It has to go forward because it was a little bit too close to the curb, and thinking a lot what to do next. But I think it's doing a little bit better job, but I'm not sure. And it says it's finished. Let's take a look in the camera feed how it did. It seems like it's quite far from the curb like last time, and I guess we are too far out on the street, at least comparing to the red Toyota Yaris here in front of us. Yep, as I saw in the camera feed, it's not a very good parking. It's not straight, it's very far from the curb. It's kind of in the center of the parking spot from the lines, but really far from the curb and not straight in the parking spot. So parallel parking seems to be quite difficult for the Tesla. So let's try one more spot and see how the car does on the parallel parking. So far, not so good. So I finally found some parallel parking spots that are on just normal pavement, and I'm hoping that the car identifies these spots. Not sure it will. Doesn't seem like it. They are clearly marked, but not identifying these parking spots. Why not? Let's see if I back. You can see it on the camera feed that we clearly have lines for parking spots, but the car isn't identifying these as parking spots. Oh, there we got it. Finally, it took a while, but let's see how it does now. There are no cars, and this is just on a normal pavement. We have clear markings where the parking spot is, and now it seems like it's identifying the other parking spot as well. There's no other car. We have a curb, so hopefully we don't crash into that. Looking at the video feed, it's backing up. We'll go forward, trying to correct its position in the parking spot, and now it says it's finished. I'm worried that it's quite far from the curb, but let's take the phone out and see how it did. As you can see, it's not the best parking job. There is lots of space between the car and the curb, and it's actually kind of inside the next parking spot, but it had difficulties identifying these parking spots. The wheels are on the line, so I guess it's okay, but I would want it to park better than this. And it has space in the back, so it doesn't need to be that much forward. So this is probably the best parking spot, parking job the car has done in the parallel parking spots. So as promised, this was the improved Autopark for the Tesla Model 3. And it is working much better, at least in normal parking. It's much quicker at parking, and I would actually use this more, since it's maybe as quick as me parking in a parking spot. But for the parallel parking, there are a lot of improvements there that Tesla needs to do. I tried a lot of parallel parking spots, and it didn't do good in any of them. The one that I'm sitting in now was probably the best one, with normal markings on a pavement. But still, it wasn't all the way into the parking spot and quite far away from the curb. So I would probably not use it for parallel parking, but for normal parking, yeah, I would certainly consider it. I really hope you enjoyed this video, and you might have learned something new on the Autopark feature on the Tesla Model 3. And if you liked this video, check my other videos on the channel And please consider subscribing if you're not already subscribed. And don't forget to like, comment, subscribe and share. See you in my next video.